course.
God, it's not just about me and Christy. It's about all you guys as well. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a good Christmas. Let us know what your whiskey presents were. If Whiskey Santa was good to you this year. Whiskey Santa was brilliant to me, I have to say.
Oh, what did Whiskey Santa bring you?
Quite a few things, actually. But my Whiskey Santa was told by my 8-month-old son. He got me the Johnny Walker Blue Label, which I was very, very happy with. Very
fancy pants.
I think I got the Talisker 8, the rum cask, which we had on Pour and Sip, and I absolutely loved it.
We did. Well remembered. Yes. I want to know what everyone was drinking on New Year's Eve as well. How did you see in 2022?
Yes. How did you see in 2022? I wasn't drinking at all because I was working. I had a nightcap afterwards.
Well, I spent New Year's Eve with wonderful Giovanna, who you might know as our founder. We had some fizz by the river with some fireworks, which is very excellent.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
I know. So fancy. So fancy.
Yes. So, let us know what you got. Whiskey Santa got you. Let us know what your New Year dram was. I saw, my nightcap was the Glengoyne 25. I had to have something very, very special to see. It was also my Christmas Day dram as well, the special one. The kinds of, this is going to open up the special one for this occasion.
That's so excellent. I was enjoying some very sherry tomatin on Christmas Day.
Oh, which one?
I think it was a 15-year-old, if I remember this correctly.
Lovely.
It was very festive, very delicious. And here we are. We are back in January, not just for a new year, whole new look box as well, which is very exciting.
Very
sleek, navy blue.
Very sleek, very modern. Looks lovely.
I know. I mean, I didn't know it was coming. I don't know what you guys thought. It was such a surprise for me when the postman arrived, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then it was all very different. But we have 5 drams inside like normal, and we should also say, welcome to anyone who's joining us for the very first time. We haven't even introduced ourselves. We just whittled on about Christmas, New Year. So,
Matt Greeley here, his Whiskey Santa bought him the Pour and Sip subscription box.
Wow. Welcome, Matt. Great to have you. And Whiskey Santa's got good taste, I think.
Yeah, Whiskey Santa's got very good taste. But I'm Andy, so I'm one of the co-hosts here at Pour and Sip, and this is...
I'm Christy. Yes. And so we both do various things in our real lives when we're not sipping whiskey. Andy's a musician. I work for a company called Fine and Rare, and we're both whiskey geeks.
Yes.
I do some whiskey training as well. Andy, you're a very accomplished blogger and videographer. Can I call you that?
I don't know if you guys know, but I'm kind of a big deal around here. So,
and it's all gone to his head.
You can follow me on Instagram at London Whiskey.
Amazing. And I'm at Christiana Sherry. And if you can spell Christiana, you win a prize. Oh, look at all these Whiskey Santa gifts coming in. TACD got a bottle of Smoke Head.
Wow, lovely stuff.
I like it. Gonna regret it when my breath smells peaty. Well, your breath might smell a bit peaty by the end of this tasting tonight as well. Spoiler alert. And Mikolai got a Macallan 15-year-old double cask and Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean. Someone was very good this year.
Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean is one of my absolute favourite kind of value for money drams. I just think it's absolutely brilliant dram. So that is very nice of Whiskey Santa for you.
Indeed. Welcome back to Pat. It was just his luck or their luck to miss out the tasting before Christmas because you were in Paris, so you did win lots of prizes of that, but you did miss all the giveaways. So congratulations again to all our winners from our festive extravaganza in I was not saying July. What's wrong with me in December?
It's been a long year, Christy, let's be honest.
Oh my gosh, have you seen what Peter got from Whiskey Santa? I'll let you read this one out.
Jeff Hurst signed England 1966 World Cup celebration whiskey was one bottle I received. Wow. Now that does sound like a special bottle. Is that one going to auction? Or?
Yeah, blown away by that one. Let us know if you drink it and what it tastes like.
Opening that one?
Yes. And then one more from Carlo, and then we'll crack on. We'll tell you what we're doing after this one from Carlo. New Year's Eve was Ardbeg Ugadile. Didn't get any whiskey for Christmas, but you did get a lovely decanter. We'll take a decanter. Very useful.
Love
very elegant.
Yes, very elegant. I've got 3 in here, actually, I have to say.
Oh, this really has gone to your head. Someone's doing well. 3 decanters. Someone's a big deal. But yes, so welcome to January. This is how we kick off our tastings. We chat some nonsense while we wait for you guys to come online for a couple of minutes, and then we get stuck into the box at hand. We do 2 tastings every month, generally the first and third Thursday. Mm-hmm. If for whatever reason that tweaks a little bit. We give you a heads up. So you can mark your calendars now for the rest of the year. And we've got 3 drams tonight, which is very exciting, including not 1, but 2 special guests for our middle dram.
Yes, absolutely. So we are going to be starting, just to line yourselves up, with the Jura.
Yes.
Unless I got this wrong. Then I'm going to be chatting with some of the guys from Cardrona Distillery over in New Zealand. Wow, very exciting. And then we will be finishing with the Loch Lomond peated single grain.
Yes.
And that is the order of proceedings for tonight. Peter Gold is saying it's still under debate whether he should sell or drink that one. I think you should do some research into that one.
Do some research. But yes, so that's our drams. We're doing 3. We're doing Jura, Cardrona, and Loch Lomond. For anyone who's slightly alarmed by the choice of order about doing Jura first, make sure you've got some water for a good palate swoosh. There is method to our madness. If you look at the Cardrona, it is 64.9%. So consider this your ABV warning as well. But do not be alarmed. I had a preliminary taste and it's gorgeous. So just have a swoosh of the palate with some water and you'll be all good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we tend to often not want to start with a peated one. But in this case, this is the order of proceedings, especially with that Cardrona coming in at a whopping 64.9%.
It's a whopper. We don't start things off lightly in these parts. Welcome to Juan as well. Whiskey Santa got me the Pour and Sip subscription, so another one new to the party. And we should let you know how this works. Drop us a line. We absolutely love to hear from you. We love to hear your tasting notes. We love to hear your thoughts. We love your questions, whether it's for our guests or for us. So get involved, chat in the comments, say hi to your fellow pour and sippers, because this is a really wonderful space. I absolutely love our little band of whiskey geeks. So yeah, there's no such thing as a silly question, ask away.
No such thing as a silly tasting note. Let us know whatever you're thinking about the whiskies, please, and we'll try and endeavour to read them out. But that's the whole point of this, is really engaging, really get stuck in, get involved. We can't wait to hear what your tasting notes are.
Indeed. And I think you need to crack on with the first dram. I'm getting thirsty all this chat about whiskey.
Yes, this is going to be my first dram tonight.
Right, let's do it. So we are going to kick off with Jura the Loch. I'm just going to pour myself out a little bit and then we're going to have a chat about it. And again, if you've been to any of these distilleries, if you have a particular memory about drinking them, let us know, because again, we absolutely love to hear from you. So Jura is one of my favourite places on this planet. I've probably gone on about this before, Andy. You've almost certainly heard me witter on.
I knew. So I think it's definitely, and you have been there. So I definitely think that is, and it's one of the places I would love to go for many reasons, but I'm sure you're going to tell us the reasons why.
Yes. Yes. Not to brag too much. I think I've been to Jura 4 times.
Wow.
I'm so lucky, considering it's a really tricky place to get to. But this for me is part of its charm. So I'll tell you a bit about the distillery and then we can taste the dram. So to get to Jura, which is one of the Hebridean islands, if you know where Islay is, it's literally just north of it. So the easiest way, in my view, to get there is to fly to Glasgow from wherever you are in the world. And then you've got the choice to either get an onward flight to Islay or drive to the ferry port at Kennacraig. Either of those options will land you on Islay, where you should absolutely take some time to hang out because it's full of gorgeous distilleries, beautiful countryside, wonderful places to eat and drink, particularly if you're into your seafood. But then you have to get another ferry from Islay over to Jura. And then it's a mere 6-mile drive along a country road to the only town called Craighouse, which has a very excellent pub and also an excellent distillery, which we have here in our glass. Well, I should say we don't have the distillery, we have the produce of.
Imagine
the produce of. So this for me is I think it's brand new. I've never even heard of this before.
I think it was a travel retail.
Ooh, that's fun.
So they had released, I think, a kind of collection for travel retail, but I'm assuming that it's now not just in travel retail.
Yeah, and I think just a bit of whiskey geekery for you here. I think we've seen this a little bit in the last couple of years. For obvious reasons, travel has been off. Yes. We've not been traveling through airports as we once did. So we've got these wonderful whiskies that were, very much set aside to be bought in airports. And now we're seeing them come to us without us having to get a plane ticket anywhere.
Well, there is something lovely about going to the airport, by the way. Sorry to go on too much of a tangent, and kind of having a look around and seeing the things that you haven't seen that are exclusives to the airport. But because of all that's been happening, we get to now try them without having to go. So there you go. I'm just going to want to go back to Steve Coleman Williams's comment. He says, Christy, are any whiskies not gorgeous?
Well, do you know what? I'm gonna say no. So sometimes when I do my WSET training for people, so literally this is like some of my favorite days of my life, where I get to like basically be a teacher in a classroom, learning, like teaching people about spirits. It's a dream. We sometimes like assess the quality of them, and in theory, it goes from like poor to outstanding. Now, I have never come across a poor whiskey in my life. I've come across some that you might think are acceptable, but for me, so much care goes into whiskies. Even if you personally don't like them, and there are some that I'm not so keen on, but most of them, I think, have such charm and such character. And I think most of them, we live in a time where there's so much science and distillation, and people people really passionate about this. If you ever get to go to a distillery, or if you've been to one, you'll see, the distillers, the blenders, everyone loves it. So I think, well, there might be some whiskies that I'm like, maybe I don't like it, or, maybe it's a bit on the young side, or maybe it's been in a cask for a bit too long. There's so much charm, I think, in every single bottle, and that's what Pour and Sip's about.
And well, that's one of the reasons, by the way, is obviously with the amazing selection we have at Pour and Sip, generally all the whiskies are gorgeous. However, I'd say as well with this one as well, we can, what you're saying about the charm of a place, and Jura is inhabited with 200 people who live on Jura, and a lot of them work at the distillery. They're outnumbered by 5,000 red deer, that live on Jura. So you can really taste the passion and the craft that has gone into something that has been produced there. So I think absolutely 100% agree with you.
I completely agree. And I do think, particularly in rural settings, and we'll hear about the Cardrona for the next dram, because obviously it's a spoiler alert, New Zealand whiskey. Be interesting to see how where the distillery is in terms of towns and cities, but so many in Scotland and very much Jura. It's such a rural place. So few people live on that island. I think 200 people, you said, Andy. It's tiny. Yeah. And it's just got such a remarkable landscape. This is actually named after the market Loch, which is the distillery's water source. So I love this, that, even the bottlings are named after a sense of place, or, a real philosophy around distilleries. And I really love it. And just a bit about the dram. So this is lightly peated for me. It's made from peated and unpeated malt, but I think you can definitely get some of the smoke on the nose. It's made using some casks which previously held, I'm going to try and pronounce this right, Pedro Jimenez sherry that's 30 years old. The sherry that's been in these casks has been doing its thing for a fair chunk of time.
Absolutely. And right from the bat, for me, I think it's a finish in Pedro Jimenez. It's not.
Yes, it's bourbon and PX. Yeah. I don't know the details for how long.
I don't think it says online how long it's been finished in those Pedro casks. But for me, you're getting these kind of really, really strong kind of notes of dates and kind of orange as well, but particularly dates and prunes that come particularly from that Pedro Jimenez cask, that super sweet, treacly, rich sherry, which is just one of the best things to drink after dinner for me.
Oh my goodness, it so is. It so is. And also, brief sidestep into sherry in general. Sherry cobblers, sherry as a cocktail ingredient is amazing. Just to now step back into the whiskey world. This one's a little side. Cheers. I haven't tasted this. I've tasted it before this evening, but I haven't tasted it yet today, and it smells amazing, and I really enjoyed it before. So Happy New Year to everybody. First dram of 2020 with you all.
First dram of 2022. So let's make it a long one. It might not be for everyone, but
It's lovely. And there are so many tasting notes coming through. My goodness. So many. Oh, and we have a question. Should we do some tasting notes and then have a question? Yeah. I think we'll do that. So Colin, can I come back to you? Because that's a great question about decanting. So, I also like Mike Pizarro. He wants to do a whiskey tour in 2022 and he wants to do a meetup. So hit Mike up if you want to go to a whiskey tour. Oh my goodness, imagine Pour and Sip on the road. Just imagine. Anyway, Reverend Kevin Wright, getting the peat and the woody, perhaps pine. L. Sutton, apple crumble on the nose with a touch of smoke. Green tea is green. Love the nose on the Jura, toffee and fruity like a Dundee cake. Ooh. Phil, I thought I'd have to wait until next year for Christmas cake, but here it is in the glass. I love that. Ian Jamberay, brown sugar, some lovely fruit from the PX, and would agree with David Stanton about chocolate on the nose. That's such a great shout. Panda Bear says raisins, sea dagnan, Sweet, rich fruitcake, not heavy. You're right. It's got a really it's got like a levity to it almost.
Yes.
Simon's picked out treacle tart. Reverend Kevin, right now I'm getting some burnt sugar, like cooking blackberry pie that's boiled out. Oh,
we were still doing prizes like Christmas. I think that would have won a prize, that one.
I know. I'm sad that we're not. Do you want to take over some, Andy?
Yeah, there's quite a lot. Mike Pizarro saying, "Oh, that's good. Toffee apple crumble, hint of peat, very subtle yet full of flavour." Phil, like picking your favourite child. I think Joe F. There's a woody orange richness on the nose, an American oak edge hints at the end. That mellow bourbon-like end with a touch of peat. Absolutely. Eddie Marshall, Everton toffee. Toffee apples and fruitcake with custard. Mike Pizarro is already getting himself a bottle of this. David Anderson, the palate's light smoke, spices and fruit. Malcolm Tucker, burnt sugar, some light fruitcake and a little wood and a little smoke. Wow, there are tons and tons. Now, Peter Gilmore saying espresso and caramelized banana. I'm definitely that kind of espresso note. I have to say that kind of bitter coffee note as well towards the end of the finish.
It's really wonderful. Okay, while everyone's sipping away, I'm going to come to Colin's question. It's a great question. When should you decant? Is it down to personal taste? Does it affect the taste of the whiskey? And is it more appropriate to decant certain whiskies over others? I have some thoughts on this. I have thoughts on everything, as you may have noted. What about you, Andy? We can ask our guests as well when they come on. Their take. But yeah,
personally, I like to pour less good whiskey into decanters, if that makes sense. I like to pour something that is slightly on the cheaper end that I can just quickly pour myself into a tumbler or something.
You want a session dram in your decanter?
I want a session dram in my decanter.
Sip, don't gulp, guys. Sip, don't gulp. Responsible drinking at all times.
One right here, actually, and I think in the moment it's got one of my absolute favourites. It's got mellow corn in here, which it's a very kind of, it's not most expensive. It's something I really like, but you can drink it. It's not, I don't want to have it out of its bottle.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's it for me. So I love the theatre of a decanter.
Yes.
I love when people come over for dinner and we have I've attempted to make something. I'm not a great cook, but I am good at serving drinks. So at the end of the dinner, we're going to have a whiskey. I mean, you don't have to have whiskey after dinner, by the way. You could also have it at any point during the meal. But out comes my decanter and everyone's like, oh, look how nice this is. And people fall in love with it. But the downside of decanters is that you're getting a whole lot of oxygen to your whiskey. And for me, the most common, if we're going to call it a fault, in quote marks, that you ever really get in whiskey, because it's not like wine. You can very, very rarely, I've come across it once in my entire whiskey drinking career, like a cork taint or a corked whiskey. It just doesn't really happen. But what does happen if a bottle's been open too long is it can kind of lose its luster a bit. It kind of it doesn't go off, but it will lose some of the intensity of flavor, some of its characteristics. And that will happen a bit quicker in a decanter because you've just got more oxygen exposed to it. So I would say if you have got people over for dinner, maybe decant a half bottle, or maybe decant something that it's your whiskey of the moment. It's not going to be hanging around for 6 months.
So I do like to see the whiskey sitting in the decanter just there because it looks really nice. So it's kind of also a decoration to me, as much as it's something to drink. But also you might open a decanter a lot more, hence there's more oxygen going into the decanter as well, because it's more, it's readily available, wherever it may be. So I completely agree with you, which is why I don't put great stuff into my decanter. However tempting it is, because the decanter looks special and decanters look lovely, I tend to put stuff that's kind of, that I'll readily drink, but I won't be upset if it goes a bit bad towards halfway down.
Yeah, and I do think there's something so lovely about the colour of whiskey in a decanter. Yes. We want to show off our whiskey. Why not put it in a decanter? It is lovely.
Personally, wouldn't put peated whiskey in a decanter.
Ooh, that's a hot take. Why?
One of the reasons is the colour thing as well, is that a lot of, especially Islay peated whiskey, is much lighter than something like a kind of like this, for example. I mean, there's a little bit of peat, but something with some sherry cask in there, Oloroso cask in there, it kind of gives whiskey that kind of darker colour. I think it looks better in the decanter than a pale whiskey.
Ooh, I know, but now I'm thinking about some sherry finished Lafroigs and some of the darker Ardbegs. I'm just being belligerent now.
Peaty whiskey tends to, the more you open it, it will go quicker. The more oxygen it gets into a peated bottle, it will go quicker and it will lose a lot of its kind of the real intense levels of peat as well, with more oxygen going into it. So there's maybe another reason why I wouldn't put a peated dram into a decanter. Also, it's likely to you're gonna have to wash it quite a lot.
Oh yeah, get that decanter in the dishwasher ASAP.
However, going back to the tasting notes of this wonderful whiskey, there are absolutely tons coming in. Carlo's not getting a huge amount of smoke, but lots of spice and raisins and honeys. It actually reminds me of rum and raisin ice cream. Absolutely, 100%. But I think you're right about it. It's a very, very subtle smoke. So this is a blending of peated and unpeated malt. And that's kind of a Jura characteristic. It's kind of a light new make spirit. And they don't, barring a couple of bottlings, they don't stick to that very heavily, well, the new style of Jura, that kind of Islay style, very heavily peated whiskey, the Lefroy's, the Ardbegs. It's a much subtler peat. And that's exactly what we're getting in this. It's much more the house style of Jura with the Pedro Jimenez thrown in for me.
Yeah, amazing. I think we'll wrap this one up shortly, but there are so many tasting notes. Do keep them coming in. Our guests will come and join us shortly for the next dram. But just a couple of more thoughts on the decanters. Bruce says, I had to put Glenmorangie into the decanter, mainly because the cork broke on the bottleneck, so the decanter saved the day. And then Pat, some of the bottles are so nice, it's a shame to empty them into a decanter. Also true.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so thanks, Colin. Colin says thank you for interesting thoughts on decanting. I do have decanter, but haven't used it yet. So there we go. We've asked the hive mind, and we have some thoughts.
Yes.
But yeah, also just to say, I've seen some comments coming in about, I really like it. Where can I get it? Always check out the Pour and Sip shop because you'll get discounts as members and you will get bargains. And yeah, don't go buying our whiskies full prices.
Yes, that's part of being in this club of ours. That's one of the great benefits of being in this club. Definitely. Is you're going to get discount on these amazing bottles. So
fabulous.
Yes.
Well, there we go. So that was a great first dram of the year, I feel. And we've had the travel retail dram. It's been delicious. And now we get to do a little bit of traveling through the medium of whiskey. And we've got not one, but two guests from Cardrona coming to join us. We've got Katie and Sarah. I'm going to buzz them in now. Hello. How are you doing?
Hello. Evening, guys.
Evening. Evening and morning, because Sarah is actually in New Zealand itself, live from near the distillery, in the distillery.
I'm just sitting upstairs in our we've got a little cozy corner reserved for a tour. So there's plenty of whiskey behind me. I'll only be drinking the one because I've got the day ahead of me. But it's really exciting to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both of us, and thank you, Katie, who's in London, like many of the rest of us.
Yeah, Wembley's not nearly as exciting as New Zealand, is it? But we can all dream through the whiskey that we're there.
We're very happy to have you. I'm going to leave you in Andy's capable hands to have a chat, and I'm going to be dramming along, and I can't wait. So I'll catch you both in a bit.
Bye, Christy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. If you just quickly give us a little introduction about yourselves and what you do at the distillery or what you do for the company and how you got into that position and, your journey there. That would be great. So I'll start with Katie.
Cool. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. First tasting of the year. Woohoo. Yes. Sending it off on a good note. I'm fairly new to the company. I've only been with Cardrona for about 4 months now. Feels like a little bit longer because we're thrown into a pretty busy season from sort of September to December. But yeah, it's been really exciting. I just fell straight away in love with the spirits, especially, of course, the whiskey, when I tried them. And it's been amazing to sort of get to know the spirits on a deeper level and hear some incredible feedback from everyone over the last few months of sort of shows and tastings and things. I love all the spirits that Cardrona make. I think they all got their own incredible sort of character and unique approach to things. But of course, I'm a whiskey geek more than anything. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone thinks of this beautiful 5-year-old. Still, we have our amazing master distiller here as well. So
please introduce
all of the technical questions can go to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm in charge of the production program here at Cardrona Distillery. I've been here since 2015. It was a building site when I started. So it was, it's been a really incredible whirlwind journey. My first job was to dig in the irrigation for our rose garden. Desiree had at some point along this dream, I thought that she might make perfume one day. So that's something that is growing along beside us.
Mm-hmm.
from there, it's just been all go. It's really, really great to have this engagement with the UK. I mean, we're still so small, and to be sharing our spirits with people in the United Kingdom is really, really exciting for us, and we love getting involved with these sort of things.
So that's awesome. So just give us, for anyone who hasn't ever heard of Cardrona, just give us a little bit of background about it and how it all started. Yeah,
absolutely. So our founder, her name is Distillery Reed. This is a woman who was very, very good at what she did. She has a background in dairy farming, but kind of had that sort of moment in life where she realized that it wasn't what she was truly passionate about. So she sold her farm. It was a really bold move. She sold her farm, and that allowed a little bit of, I guess, financial freedom to take a breath and to research and to travel. And she thought that she might build New Zealand's largest commercial single malt distillery. And it came to be. So we're here because of her. It was not a short road. There was a lot of work. The build itself, they got done in a year. That was the fastest part of the entire process. And we don't just make whiskey. It's really important to recognise Cardrona celebrates barley completely. We make a single malt vodka, we make a beautiful gin, and we make liqueurs based off a single malt white spirit as well.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. Hopefully we'll get those on the show one day. Are those available in the UK as well?
They are indeed, yes.
Ah, fantastic stuff. So just for anyone who's not kind of, thought about whiskey from New Zealand, how many other distilleries are producing whiskey at the moment in New Zealand?
Yeah, there's a handful, and it's a number that's quickly growing. It's an industry that has sort of really tapered off and is just starting to really, really pick up. More so in the white spirit category, but there are more and more whiskey distilleries joining the fold. And we're in the process, it's a really exciting time in our history, we're in the process of sort of defining what a New Zealand single malt means, and kind of following closely behind Japan and the work that they've done there, but really focusing on quality and wanting to launch a spirit that is of a quality that can be on the shelves with the best. So it's an exciting time in the history of New Zealand spirits, for whiskey especially, and we're happy to be here for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. But is it too early right now to say what that style is kind of leaning
towards? I would hate to sort of pigeonhole it this early. I think that we're at a really exciting moment of where innovation is still possible, and absolutely we want to pay homage to traditional practices and recipes, but I think defining a style right now would only hurt us. So I think we need to kind of have that freedom for creativity.
Absolutely. So you're talking about the distillery was set up, it took a year. I mean, seems really quick. Talk us through that distillery equipment and kind of how that, and what kind of stills you're using and how that affects the house character of the Cardrona.
Yeah. So the build itself, like that was the year, but there was plenty of work before that. Distillery travelled extensively. Our pot stills for the whiskey production are Forsyth, so from Rothes in Scotland, and she visited the factory many times to sort of be hands-on and involved with the shape and style that were to come over. The Forsyth family came over and cut our ribbon on our opening day, so that was really, really exciting for us.
Wow.
Very cool. And they designed our mash tun for us as well, which was awesome. So we do, we've got a lot of equipment that's come across. Simply, as I said, the industry here is still small, still growing, and we don't have the sort of luxury of tapping the shoulders of New Zealand manufacturers just yet. That may change. But no, she definitely did her homework and brought the best to us.
That's great to hear. Now, a few people are just saying in the comments here, so Ian Jamboree saying he's looking forward to seeing how this one's going to compare to the Just Hatch. It would have been awesome, actually, to get a kind of side-by-side tasting of these two to see, because this is almost, it's like a progress report for you guys, right? These whiskies, it's kind of getting towards that 10-year-old point, because you're still such a young distillery. You obviously haven't released the 10-year-old whiskey yet. So this is more like a progress report, these drams that you're releasing.
That's exactly what it is. It is. It's a snapshot in time, and because of that, we've gone with the half-size bottle at cask strength. So every Cardrona whiskey release has been cask strength, and that will continue until we feel that the whiskey's really come into its own with the oak, which we believe will be at 10 years. And from that point on, we'll look at something a little bit more close to sort of a bottle strength in the 40s, maybe 50. But until that point, cask strength all the way.
Yeah, and I think that's super exciting as well, because it's like it gives everybody a chance to kind of really put themselves and kind of invest in the distillery itself and kind of see how it's grown. And, you know, when you get to that point, you know, to have played a little part in kind of understanding how it's got to this point, I think that's a really exciting thing about the project.
Definitely.
So I'm just going to read out a few of these tasting notes before we actually talk about this dram in particular. Joe F is saying it's amazing that at 64.9%, the nose isn't a punch of alcohol to the face. I actually agree. Like it's not subtle, but it's definitely not kind of smacking me in the face with the alcohol, which is it's a good thing as well. But and also for a young whiskey bottled at 64.9%, you'd expect it to be. It's much more balanced than that for me so far on the nose. Mikolai's excited about this one, wondering how it stacks up against the Starwood. Steve Coleman Williams, this smells oddly smoky for an unpeated, earthy compost with a sweetness I can't quite put my finger on. Carlo immediately getting aniseed on the nose, very unusual. Reverend Kevin Wright enjoying the nose, melted butter. David Stanton nose, caramelized apple and cut hay fruit. Your Uncle Vanya, absolute pour and sip regular. Welcome back. Just Hatch was quite the jam, and I loved their single malt vodka. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Richard Brown, pear drops and honey feels it goes down rich like a syrup. And Joe, if I'm getting a white wine edge on the nose, C. Dagnan, smooth, buttery biscuit base. So talk us through this particular dram that we're trying today.
What a vocabulary this crew has. Those are some great
amazing tasting notes.
So I guess, I kind of whizzed through where our stills were from, but I didn't talk a lot about the style that we're hoping to achieve. This is an unpeated whiskey. We don't work with a peated malt. Our fermentation lengths are long. We're sort of at a point where our brand, we're wanting to grow, so we don't push production to its full capacity. We have a very cruisy sort of 9 to 5 operation. So our first draw from the washbacks is not until after 70 hours in tank, and the last could be 100 plus. So that time in tank allows a lot of flavor, not just ethanol to be created, but a lot of aldehydes and acids that become really fruit-forward esters. There's floral, there's a lot going on, and then you send that to a small washback with a lot of copper interaction, lots of opportunities to sweeten the spirit, and you end up with these beautiful heavy oils that are really sweet. So definitely kind of a stateside Highland style whiskey, but lots going on, and that high alcohol just carries all that flavor along to the glass.
Yes. Would you recommend anyone adding water to this to begin with at that high strength?
I do. I don't know. How do you feel, Katie? I definitely add a little bit. I don't think it needs a lot, but everyone is an individual when it comes to water addition.
Yeah, just a splash, but I think this is great at making people ask a lot of questions and, realize that it doesn't have to be drank at cask strength. It's all about your own personal palate, and trying it at different strengths is really interesting because you will get new flavors appearing at different alcohol strengths. So I always encourage people to just have a little sip neat, and people always surprised that it is this ABV. They always say it's amazingly smooth. I think because it is such an oily, sort of viscous distillate, you never think it was 64%. But, by all means, add as much water as it suits you. I like a little splash just to take the edge off, but and then it becomes incredibly sort of sweet and silky. But yeah, it's a very personal thing, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the great thing about cask strength is I tend to drink cask strength. Like the first sip, I would always drink it neat. But the great thing about cask strength is it gives you the kind of the drinker the possibility of acting as kind of a blender as well, and kind of diluting it to the taste that kind of suits their flavor profile and where they like it. So I would always drink it neat personally, and then maybe add like half a teaspoon of water. And if that for me is still not, it won't suffice, I'll add another half teaspoon of water. It's better to add too little than too much and drown the whiskey. It's just my
so you
kind
have to keep adding more whiskey.
Yeah, you could do that.
bring it back into balance.
You could do that as well. I'm just going. So also just for everyone, this is matured in ex-bourbon, ex-Oloroso sherry casks.
Oloroso, and for this expression, there is a little bit of PX, Pedro Ximenez, that you tasted with the Jura as well.
Before. Is that kind of a distillery thing? Is it going to be predominantly ex-bourbon casks and ex-sherry casks? Are you looking into different type of cask maturations going forward, or is it?
We have a growing body of local Pinot Noir casks as well, maturation profile, and then when we play, there's a handful of Chardonnay. There's maybe 2 Sauterne. So if special casks do pop up, absolutely. But we are looking forward to celebrating a local Pinot Noir cask soon. That's just something that came in a little bit later, so we're giving them a little bit more time.
Yeah, okay, that sounds really exciting.
It's beautiful. The Pinot Noir single cask that you recently released, it's stunning, and it's available in the UK in small quantities if anyone's interested.
Okay, so that will be the next one that when we get you on here again, that will be the next one to add to the list, hopefully. It's interesting as well because when we talked today from Starwood as well, it's that celebration of the local kinds of produce, the local wine scene as well, which is obviously important as well in New Zealand, and it's that kind of celebration using that local produce as well, and local wines to kind of use in the whiskey world. So I think that's awesome. I'm going to read out some more tasting notes because there are just tons and tons coming in. Steve Coleman Williams, peach and pear drops mixed with bread pudding. Oh, Tom Gilling water. Oh, that's much better. With a fair slosh of water, we're getting loads of spicy fruits and toffee vanilla. Mike Pizzara, yup, apricot. Alcohol is not subtle, but didn't want to dilute yet. Al Sutton, loads of fruit on the palate. Carlo, light fruit on the palate, apricot and peaches, then spicy on the way down. David Stanton, palate, apricot, pear, honey, spicy with a kick. Reverend Kevin Wright, we're not getting pear drops. My wife gets half-ripe pears, green fruit, but not apples. Interesting. TACD, there's definitely a grassy note after adding some water. Clive Hampton, palate is rocket fuel with sherry hints. Les Brown, still drinking just hats but patched, but this is richer and coming along nicely. Eddie Marshall, Turkish Delight and apricot, almond tart on the palate, a nice spicy finish. The alcohol doesn't overpower. Darren Gormley, loving the spiciness. Craig Jones, Cardrona, wow. Nigel Bain, great nose, nutty toasted hot cross buns. Agree that despite the strength, it doesn't knock you out. So a question from Steve Coleman Williams: what does the temperature variation do to the whiskey? I know how hot, and cold does, but New Zealand gets an extreme of both climates. He's talking about at times. How does that affect the whiskey and the maturation process?
That's a great question. I think we're seeing maturation characters in our whiskey earlier than we ever hoped to. I think it's not just from summer to winter, but even day to night temperatures do swing quite dramatically here in the valley. And I should say, for our location, we are nestled between Queenstown and Wanaka, and almost at sort of the end of the spine of the Southern Alps of the South Island of New Zealand. So we've got ski fields on either side of us, and we do get the extremes of temperature. We were very careful to heavily insulate our barns, so we are mitigating huge swings, but we do see the two extremes. And I think because of that, our maturation is coming on even faster than we had hoped for. So we're seeing it as a positive.
Yes, absolutely. I remember Paul from Few Spirits was saying that he doesn't think of it as speeding up maturation as well, as much as he just thinks of it as part of the process as well. It doesn't mean just because it gets to a certain age, you've sped it up and then it essentially tastes better because it comes at that age. We're talking about a young spirit here as well in this one. And, it's absolutely amazing quality. And there's a lot of kinds of snobbishness at times about younger spirits, and it's not as good because it's younger. But I think with stuff like this, we're kind of changing that perception a lot.
Definitely.
Older spirits are better.
Yeah. And enjoying that journey.
That's exactly, but particularly in this case, it's enjoying the journey and understanding how this spirit has got to that stage. So what about you guys? Talk us through your tasting notes for this whiskey.
Those tasting notes are incredible. You guys are amazing at this. I'm blown away. An amalgamation of those things, really. I definitely was interesting to hear that honey and spices and sort of apricot and fruit keeps coming up. Because for me, the distillate is just so honeyed and sort of gently spicy with a bit of a herbal undertone. So you're getting that journey of like sort of sweetness and then different complex notes underneath. But definitely this is more rich and spicy than the 3-year-old. It's a bit more chocolatey, dark, a bit more spicy, sort of clove and sort of cacao, almost like a raw cacao for me on the nose. It's just really, really layered, and I love the texture. I think it's amazing how long the finish goes on for such a young whiskey. And, tasted blind, I think a lot of people would never say this was 5 years old. That's sort of me. I mean, I think that with every tasting, I get something slightly different. And I still can't choose if I prefer this or the Just Hatched, because I think the Just Hatched is just really elegant and a little bit more raw. I love them both.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read out a few more tasting because there are still absolutely tons coming in. There's a lot of interest. If anyone does have any more questions for the guys, for Sarah and Katie, before we move on to the next round, because I am looking at the time and we are starting to slightly run out, please make yourself known right this second. Bruce Edwards, heading towards a rum type taste, but not as sweet. Really pleasant taste. DS007. I think this is much more rounded than the Just Hatch, which is what you'd expect in the development journey. Is that something you've noticed, Sarah?
I think so, yeah. I think that the spirit and the oak are coming together that little bit more. There's a slight more refinement. Like the Just Hatch sort of blew everyone out of the water with what it was for 3 years old, and now we're starting to see characters that are just getting us more and more excited about the adult whiskey to come. Absolutely.
Is it a learning process for you guys as well?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Every day is a school day.
Yeah, absolutely. If Reverend Kevin Wright, if someone bought me a bottle of this, I'd be delighted. Is that, are you asking someone to buy you a bottle of this at the Pour and Sip store? Hopefully someone buy Reverend Kevin Wright a bottle of the Cardrona growing wings. David Stanton, finished vanilla cream, spicy and oily in Jambo Rain. Can we try one of these every year? So we want to know if we can get all the progress for you, every release going for the Pour and Sip store, and we can have this as the kind of journey for all the Pour and Sippers to understand more about the Cardrona journey. Sound like a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's go for it. El Sutton pairs well with 70% dark chocolate. Is that something you pair? Did you do whiskey pairings at all with chocolate at all? With food pairings?
We do a little bit, yeah. Not just chocolate, a range of food, but
absolutely. I can imagine with the local produce around where you guys are, there's some pretty great chances of doing food pairings.
I keep googling the sort of the pictures of food and cocktails that you do at the distillery, and it looks amazing.
Yeah,
very
absolutely. Graham Lloyd Jones, cask strength, not for me. That's the great thing about Pour and Sip, is we do find out things, and sometimes, especially if you're maybe more new to whiskey as well, and you have been used to trying maybe 40% spirits and under even, trying 64.9% can, be a bit much for people, but I think it's definitely a personal taste. Personally, I love cask strength whiskey. It's just really up my alley. But everybody is different. Green tea is green. Getting the oiliness and pepper coming through now. It has had some air. Jonathan Gumbrell, how many 35 centilitre bottles are you producing a year? So what is the output of Distillery? As you said, it's pretty small.
Sorry, the day is picking up here. Our whiskey production is about a 200 litre a barrel per day. That's what we're laying. The Solera expressions, what we're tasting right now, we work to keep on the shelves, and then single cask we release 1 or 2 a year. So we really are very small, and that's for the UK and New Zealand. So we are still a very small producer.
Yes, and talking of being a small producer, the plans for the future, where do you see it going?
Come April next year, we're going to double production, so 2 barrels a day. The plant itself is designed to work through the night, and as we grow as a company, that's where it will go. But I mean, you sit down and have a whiskey with our founder Distillery, and there's no limit. We'll get to our limit, and she'll build another distillery.
Okay, literally the sky is the limit, and the sky is not even high enough.
No,
Exactly.
Well,
I can see that, but that's absolutely great to hear. Ian Jambo Rain, right at the end of the finish, I'm now getting apples. David Stanton, yes, this would be lovely with cheese. Absolutely. TACD, well, now I'm hungry. Sorry about that, TACD. Bruce Edwards, splash of water, and I think I'm getting a hint of gingerbread on the nose. Mike Wally, amazing for 5 years old. Carlos White, thank you both. Certainly something I'll keep an eye on. Let's join them on their journey. Simon, we need a Cardrona every year to check on progress, please. Bruce Edwards, dug out the first hatch notes, and I certainly prefer this one. Keep up the good work. Linda Cohen, what type of food pairing? I mean, is there anything you would particularly pair with this Cardrona? Goes with it? The house style?
House style? We actually, when we do our food pairing with the whiskies on tour, we go out of our way to kind of just quash pairings. I guess we try a whiskey with something that is pickled, something that's savory, and something that's sweet, just to show people that how versatile the spirit is and how you can go in any direction. And it's about not just finding things that marry, but things that collide, because that's the most exciting way to sort of discover flavors and textures.
Wow, that's super interesting. Well, thank you both for joining us. I'm going to invite Christy back on. There she is. What did you think, Christy?
Oh my goodness, I loved it so much. I was sitting here reading the tasting notes while just grinning into my tasting glass because it's just so delicious. And yeah, I was really lucky to taste first hatched as well. And this, I feel like the evolution of fruit, it feels so big and bold and really, it's almost like it's gaining in confidence. It feels so much like I really enjoyed first hatch. This feels so integrated, like it's doing its thing, and it's just amazing. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
It's really great. So
Brian,
thank you so
confident.
much for joining us both. If you can hang out, come and join us again at the very end. And if anyone's got any other questions, please pop them in the chat. But if you have to scuttle off, obviously it's fine. I'm very aware of time differences and all of these things.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, amazing. We'll
Can
see
you
you again in
go?
15 minutes or so.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Fabulous. So if you do have any burning questions for Katie and Sarah, keep a note of them. And then when they come back in a little bit after our third and final dram, we'll make sure we get through as many as we can. So they were amazing guests. I feel like I learned so much. What a treat to have two people sharing the same, different perspectives on the same whiskey.
That's exactly it. The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. I loved that.
Yes.
And now I have to come back to the world of Scotland because
Yes.
we have a whole extra dram, a whole another dram to get through.
Yeah. And we are headed over to Loch Lomond.
We're heading up to Loch Lomond. I'm just like laughing at Graham Lloyd Jones. Go New Zealand, go! Yeah, so good. It was so good, so enjoyable. But now we're back in Scotland, but we do have something quite unusual here in our tasting glasses, I feel.
Mhm.
I'm so interested to get people's thoughts on this because technically, by the law of the land or the law of the SWA, what we have here is a single grain whiskey, but it's actually made using malted barley, which blew my mind a little bit when I first nosed it. Because if you have been a member of Pour and Sip for a while, you will know that I am a complete and utter single grain geek. I am obsessed with single grain. So single grain, again, legal terminology, is malted barley and other grains. So typically what you find with a single grain in normal times, you'd have probably a lot of wheat, some corn. It's a real mix. This is 100% malted barley, but what makes it different is the type of still they've used for it. So instead of using what we would have had with Jura and what we had with Cardrona, where we've got pot stills, this is in a column still. And Loch Lomond is such a fascinating distillery for this because they have all kinds of stills there. I think they were the first in Scotland and maybe still the only one to have all different kinds of stills under one roof. They can make single grain, single malt, so they can make their own blends. They've got hybrid stills. They've got the works going on. I would love to sneak behind the doors and go and see it. And if anyone from Loch Lomond happens to be watching, please invite me. I want to come and check out your array of stills, please.
Because I don't think you can. It's not an open tour, is it?
No. If it was, I would have banged on that distillery gate long ago.
No, I think they're the only, aren't they? The only Scottish distillery that can produce that many different types of whiskey all under the same roof.
Yeah, I think so. Certainly in Scotland. So it's quite an established thing in Japan because a bit of whiskey geekery chat as we've been doing all evening. In Scotland, there's a really strong tradition of trading casks with each other. All the big distilleries and small distilleries will make a load of whiskey. They'll keep some, they'll sell some, they'll trade it. So that when you're blending, you've got an amazing pool of whiskey, a really diverse palette, if you will, to create from. And in Japan, just because of the history and how the industry was established, we just didn't have that culture of cask trading. So the big distilleries would set up and they'd have pot stills of different shapes and sizes. They'd have column stills. They'd have hybrid stills. And I guess in some ways, Loch Lomond is following that model, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. So this is also, not only is this unusual because it's a single grain made from 100% malted barley, obviously in a column still. Column stills, the best way to describe this, if you think about the pot stills we talked about, they're like onion-shaped kettles. They're very batch process, very labor intensive. You put essentially your beer in, you distill it once, you get to from sort of 8 to 10% ABV to 25 to 30, and then you typically do it a second time. Some people do it 3 times, specifically in Ireland. The easiest way probably to think about a column still, obviously there's much more to it than this. You've got one pot still, another pot still, stack them up on top of each other with other ones, and then you've got lots of mini distillations all on top of each other. And that's how column stills work in a very basic way. Clearly, I'm not a chemist.
I was getting scared for your Glencairn glasses there, I have to say.
Dangerous stuff when you're on your third dram. But what it means is that you can distill to a much higher ABV in the column still than you can in the pot still. That's ultimately one reason why you do it. And also because you can do it continuously. You don't have to load it and then unload it and load it and then unload it. You can just keep going. So that's a way of making single grain. So that's quite exciting. The other thing I was going to come on to is obviously this is peated, which is also quite unusual for a single grain. Have you tasted the peated single grain before?
I was literally just about to say that I don't think I have.
I don't think I have. Have I? No.
And I can't, off the top of my head, think of a standard in a range of any whiskey peated single grain. If anybody has before this, please let us know in the comments, or if they know of one. But I don't. I mean, I've got to say some of the tasting notes coming in already are loving this. First nose of the Loch Lomond brought to my mind bubblegum, sea dagnum, nose, medicinal bananas. Now, a hint of TCP and fresh green apples. Jim Glancy, the peat is really subtle, but so smooth and easy to drink. Ian Jambo Rain, this is very subtle for a peated whiskey. Steve Hickson, TCP, not my type of whiskey. Absolutely, it is definitely not for everybody. John James, smells a bit like burnt rubber. There's definitely got that thing going on there. The kind of, as well, is a very medicinal smell for me as well. And Mike Pizarro smells like a canteen at a hospital serving Moroccan stew. Wow.
Oh my gosh, how specific. I love it so much.
That is amazing. Mike, you get the prize. DS007, light smoky pears on the nose. What about you, Christy? What are you getting?
Yeah, so I want to say now, straight out of the box, I am really enjoying this, but it's so fascinating to me. It's one that I'm finding quite hard to pin down. And I think it's because my head and my nose are almost telling me different things. So when we've had single grains before, they've been light and buttery, and the texture's been really, I don't know, it's like an ice cream in a glass, an ice cream wafer, like a Mr. Whippy and a flake, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this definitely has aspects of that, for sure. But you've also got this ridiculous peat coming through, which is very pronounced, and it's very interesting. And TCP, for sure, is the way to describe it. And also the burnt rubberiness. I get that quite a lot on peat. But what I would also say is you've got the oiliness of the malt is still there as well, because this is made from malted barley, lest we forget that it's, not got corn or wheat or anything like that in it. So it's really, I wouldn't say confusing, but it's really making me think about it. And I'm really pleased we get to try it, because I don't think I've ever tasted anything like it.
No, it's like, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, there's the medicinal peat. I don't think it's overpowering the peat personally. No. There's like lots of kind of green apple skin, maybe green pear skin as well.
Yeah.
Just green fruits for me as well. The vanilla is the thing that's making me think single grain in here. But with that peat on top of it, that's where it kind of, it's like you said, it's a bit confusing. But I like that. I haven't had a try of this yet. I haven't tasted it yet, because the nose for me is so interesting that I'm kind of getting my head around it first before having a try. So I'm going to try it now.
You taste it, and I'll read out some more tasting notes, because they are, they're not coming in quite as thick and fast. I'm wondering if people are also having a bit of a think about it. So DS007, light smoky pears on the nose. Jake Kruger just paired it with a bit of biltong, and lovely. So anyone non-veggie, crack out that biltong and enjoy. Simon, smelled a bit medicinal at first, as that's changed to apples. As it's changed to apples and a tiny hint of peat. Steve Coleman Williams, blackberry jam, fresh vanilla pod and spices. Not actually getting the peat on this. MB recently had COVID, smell might be affected. I hope you're feeling all right, Steve, and you are let out of, if you're still in isolation, you're let loose soon. Kevin Harris suggests Germaline. I'm absolutely here for that. Steve Coleman Williams is on the money with this one. A little bit of a pour and sip in joke, and I'm here for it. Smoky, cokey, floaty contender.
How can you tell a pour and sip regular? They're making in joke.
So for anybody who missed it or is new, we had a wonderful fellow called Colin Dunn come and join us for a Lagavulin dram. And he told us all about the wonders of the smoky, cokey, floaty, which is essentially whiskey and cola with an ice cream float.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. Definitely try that this weekend if you haven't already. TACD agrees it's very unusual. Mikolai, smoked apples, black pepper with a bit of a citrus kick. Al Sutton, I usually prefer a dram with more peat, but this is light and very drinkable. Mike Pizarro, actually tastes good. Blackberries. Iodine is in the flavour. Tastes peaty, but no smell of smoke. It's surprising. The whiskey diary, a question.
Mm.
The barley is peated to around 50 ppm. Do you think the column still affects the types of phenols which propagate to the finished whiskey via a pot versus a pot still? Oh, here we go. I love this question. And I will start, maybe we'll put this to Sarah when she comes back as like, actual distiller. But I would say, not being a distiller, not being a chemist, that to me, because you've got lots of little mini distillations, what it does, if we're going to get slightly geeky, phenol compounds being a little bit heavier, they need more energy to get them to go up the still. So if you're, taking your vapors off the still quite high up, they might not quite get up there because they're quite lazy, they're quite big, it takes a lot to get them there. So I think you get much more pronounced spirits, much more, if you've got a peated spirit in a pot still, for me, it's very likely, depending on what you do with your column still, it's very, very likely that your pot still will have more of these pronounced smoky notes. But I will, ask someone who knows really what they're talking about, because they do this all the time, very shortly. So we'll come back to that. But yes, I would say you get very different styles and textures of spirits with very different flavour compounds in them between a pot and a column still. I'll read out a few more and then we'll ask Andy for his thoughts, because he looks very pensive over there. Colin, definitely a confusing dram. I really can't make up my mind about it. Not getting much peat. Clive Hampton, agree with the chlorinated swimming pool comment, but pleasant. Matt, definitely sweet apples, really nice and light, quite refreshing, I feel. And then we've got Alistair. I don't like it. I like it. I don't like it. I like it. I might be able to make my mind up by the end of the glass. You sound a bit like a cat deciding whether to go outside or not, but I like it. And just a couple more, and then we'll go to Andy. Steve Common Williams, vanilla custard, blackberry crumble with a hint of anise, and smoke is definitely there. Carlos, I do get the burnt smell and a bit TCP. I don't like TCP, but it feels softer than you would think. Soft and peaty without knocking your socks off. I do like very peaty drinks, but this one is nice and easy. Could be a decanter dram. There we go. Your verdict, please, Andy.
No, I'm absolutely loving this. I think it is really confusing, but I have to say that on the finish, there's this lovely, that for me is where the single grain, that kind of vanilla custard, kind of kind of Victoria sponge as well, that's kind of on the edge of my palate at the moment. It's a really kind of creamy note that has kind of, I just think this is actually a really, really interesting whiskey.
Yeah.
Steve Coleman Williams asking, is this the most divisive whiskey we've had so far? Interesting. We've had a lot of divisive whiskies on over the course of our year and a half. Is it now? Maybe was it a year and a half?
Yeah, it was September was our birthday.
Yeah, so like a year and a few months. But this one, it's not necessarily, it's not like a love it or hate it thing for me. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I mean, I really, really like it. But it's. I just think it's super, super interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think I could, I'd like to sit with this one.
Yeah.
And see how it opens up.
I think I would also say, just before we bring our guests back and we can ask them all of these questions as well, this is something that I really love in whiskey, when people aren't afraid to do something a bit different. I think it's really fascinating, and I love to see it when distillers, put something unexpected through a column still, or, do something that we've not really ever seen before. And I'm really here for it. Like, I'm so here for it. And it's one that is going to baffle me, but it's not because it's unpleasant anyway. It's just because it's different than anything I've ever tried before.
I'd also like to see if there is another peated single grain to try the comparison as well, because I honestly can't think of one. So maybe that's just me not knowing, but like I haven't tried one, I don't think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, let's see if Katie and Sarah are here, and we'll bring them back just for a little chat at the end. So yeah, any questions you've got for them, now is the time. Hello again, team. How are you doing?
Hi.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, a little bit of Loch Lomond. It's a fascinating distillery, actually.
Have you visited?
I have been there. A great little tour when I was with Milroy's a year or two ago. It's not open to the public normally, so that was quite a privilege. And it isn't sort of like the prettiest of distilleries with like the pagoda roof and mountains behind it, but it is, amazing experience. It's just super geek level, all sorts of stills, just everything you can imagine. So they're so experimental and creative there, and they love to sort of try out many different distillate types. And it was super education. Seeing the distillery for sure. I think it's lovely, dram. Really. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been so great to sort of sit and geek out about it. I'm so envious that you've been. I want to go and be a fly on the wall and visit all the different stores, what's going on.
I'm sure you could wangle yourself a little visit at some point.
Yeah. I'll get onto them straight after. So please come and see. And if I do ever get to go, I will take lots of videos and share them with you at Pour and Sip so we can go behind the scenes. That would be fun. And Sarah, we had a really interesting question about how peated spirit might behave in a column versus a pot still. What's your take on that? I gave an answer.
No, I think you answered it beautifully. I think that question of how volatile components are relative to ethanol, and that those lazier ones, as you said, the less volatile ones are going to hang around the bottom. They are going to take that little bit more energy and time to rise over the top. And that's the beauty of column distillation, is that you can be selective in what you want to come over and join your distillate versus what you want to leave behind. So I think you answered it beautifully.
Marvelous. I'm very pleased because I was like, oh, there's someone here who really knows their stuff and does this every single day. And I'm so pleased you were here to help answer it. This is so great. And I just think, I mean, at Cardrona, do you see yourselves ever doing something kind of like quite unusual and experimental like this? Would you ever play around with single grain or peat or any of these things?
I think we do have column stills available to us for the use of to create our single malt white spirit. So there is, I guess, room to play with a multitude of stills. We're not set up to take on, the likes of, say, doing corn. We're never going to make a bourbon, and rye would be quite challenging for us, but not impossible. We would like to one day potentially malt barley ourselves on site. So I think we could look at playing with that down the road. Distillery will take a little bit of arm twisting, I think, to introduce a peat to the fold. But we were very lucky. We went over and had a little trip to Islay before the world sort of closed in on us, and we had a great time. So hopefully that trip inspired a peated whiskey one day. We'll see.
I mean, isn't this the joy of whiskey? The incredible flavour spectrum that's out there, and how, I guess, with technology and people giving whiskey a bit more love, that we can do all these incredible things. I feel like for a while we kind of lagged behind wine in a way in terms of understanding and what casks do and how to get the spirit. And now the world is our oyster.
Yeah, we play with different yeast strains, different malts. Yeah, I think it's been an exciting time to be involved with whiskey for sure.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Wild Eyed Bill has stated that the Tweedle Grain of Truth is a peated single grain whiskey. Have you tried this?
Oh, I am familiar with that brand, but I've not had Grain of Truth, so I'm going to go and check that out because that's a fascinating one.
So that's interesting. I'll have to check that out. And so some of you have already. I can tell all the Pour and Sip regulars because you're already answering the question. I've not even asked it. Guys, what we do like to do is ask what has been your favourite of the evening so far. Not the box, because obviously we're going to save the last two for the second tasting of January. So that's up to you guys. But yeah, if you want to try along with us, please save your drams, the last two. Very, very exciting dram in particular for the next Pour and Sip live tasting. But please let us know what your favourite of the night has been. There are tons and tons coming in, and I'm sure Sarah and Katie won't be offended too much if it's not Cardrona, because obviously we all have very different opinions. El Sutton, the Jura wins for me tonight. Gerard McNeely, Jura wins for me. Steve Coleman Williams, Cardrona wins hands down for me this week. Malcolm Tucker has to be the Jura for me. Simon, Cardrona for me too. Will be ordering a bottle and thinking about ordering a Loch Lomond. Can't make my mind up on that one. Jonathan Gumbrell, Cardrona wins for me this week. Well done, New Zealand. So, all in New Zealand. There you go. You hear that, New Zealand? Well done. Detecting with Juice, Cardrona. Alistair Tapp, no competition tonight for me. Cardrona by 6 furlongs in a 6 furlong race. There you go. Anjualgem, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Jura and Cardrona get my vote. Reverend Kevin Wright saying, delighted that so many women are involved in the whiskey industry. Yes, absolutely. We had a wonderful Women in Whiskey celebration. When was that, Chrissy? That feels like
it was March. It was for International Women's Day, which was great. And absolutely. We are no longer a rarity, which is great. I feel like, women everywhere.
Clive Hampton, this is why Pour and Sip is great. 3 really distinctive whiskies with different characteristics. Loch Lomond for him. Ian Jambo Rain giving us a Cardrona, then Jura, then Loch Lomond. David Sands, the best for me tonight is the Cardrona. Can't believe it's 64.9%, and one I think I could sit drinking all night. Don't know how much I don't know how I feel like in the morning.
David.
Mike Pizarro, Jura is superb, especially at this price. There's always great selection again. Obviously, Eddie Marshall, Cardrona, Mikolai, Loch Lomond was so unique. Thumbs up for him. Green tea is green. Cardrona. I think I've just done them all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of love for Cardrona, which is amazing.
There's a lot of love for Cardrona, and there's more comments.
More coming in. I guess just a question to wrap up, really. I mean, I may have missed this, but I remember you guys talking about whiskies in New Zealand, whiskies in the UK. Where's next for you? Are you doing national things? Like, what's the next big focus? Where can we find you in the world going forward?
Having a couple of exciting conversations with the US at the moment, but they're just at that conversation level. So that'll be a watch this space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very exciting. I've had a few people from France asking, surprisingly, even though they make incredible wine and cognac and champagne and all sorts, apparently they're number one drinkers of whiskey in Europe. Is that still true?
I think
so. I've had quite a few people say, when is it coming to France? So I don't know, watch this space, maybe, who knows.
It's so exciting.
Great.
I personally, I mean, I work for a company that predominantly does wine now, and I did a little whiskey 101 training with them in the sort of for a few sessions before Christmas, and stressing to them and kind of like to us and everyone here, the rise of New World whiskey and just incredible producers from everywhere. It just fills me with such joy and just thrills me every single time we can just celebrate the geographic breadth of whiskey and just the wonderful people in the industry from everywhere. So yeah, thank you for joining us all the way from New Zealand and also London, but with the New Zealand whiskey.
New Zealand and Wembley.
New Zealand and Wembley. I'm so here for it.
Thank you for having us. We've loved it. It's been a joy.
It's been so good. And thank you for joining us, everyone at home. Oh, we've lost. Has Katie come back? Was that me? She's back. She's back. I wasn't sure if that was me or you just then, but she's here. Thank you for everyone joining us at home, for dramming along. Oh, if we've got time for one last question, just quickly. This is a really interesting question. We're just about to wrap up, but I'm gonna grab you for one more second. The Danes at Stowning use local heather instead of peat. Is there a local thing that you could potentially burn instead of peat?
We've got plenty of tussock, gorse. I don't know. I guess we'll have a play when the time comes.
You may have just.
Amazing. Right, we are going to wrap up. Oh, sorry.
Great question.
It's a great question. I love that question. That's why I was like, no, don't go just yet. We need to get you back. Thank you for joining us, everyone, particularly if it's your first tasting with us. It's been so much fun. We're back on the 20th of January at 7:30 again for the last two in the box. If you can resist them, please do your best. We've got obviously a pour and sip exclusive from Compass Box, which I can't wait to try. And then a Tobermory dram as well. So save them as best you can. Thank you so much. Thank you especially to Sarah and Katie. It's been an absolute joy. And cheers to everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for your great tasting.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Yeah.